Crazy Horse dreamed and went into the world where there is nothing but the spirits of all things. That is the real world that is behind this one, and everything we see here is something like a shadow from that one. Black Elk. Good morning, everyone. I am going to go over some of the ancient Chinese cosmology as well as the Oglala Sioux. Good stuff. This all relates into the commonality, consistencies of the ancient cosmological structure. And let me go ahead and, oops, not that. I didn't mean that. Crud. I hate clicking on the wrong buttons. All right. 0 viewers. Okay, wait, maybe 2. Wow, great stuff. All right, let's get to it. So, so this is the common cosmology of the ancients. This is a picture from the University of Idaho. It seems like no matter which cosmological, which society you go to in ancient civilizations, it appears to be the same. Isn't that peculiar? You could say, hey, it's just coincidence. And then insert whatever your reason to support that. Hey, they're primeval. They were unenlightened, and there's plenty of sites that will say that, especially when you do a Google search. And DuckDuckGo, oh man, they're starting to get to the point where it's very similar to Google. And this is the article, www.webpages.uidaho.edu. And of course, this is going to be more of a biblical view of cosmology. And there's plenty of videos out there where they will discuss the biblical cosmology. I may get to that again, but what I want to focus on is currently the ancient Chinese and also the Oglala Sioux, and just revisiting that. I listened and watched and read about all these ancient cosmological stories in the past. That was probably in my teens and in my early 20s, so basically 2+ decades ago. Wow, it's long. It's been a long time, but now, of course, I've got new knowledge, more knowledge, and well, I need to revisit everything again. It's just like when you watch a movie when you're a kid, and then you watch the movie again, maybe 10 years later, and you watch the movie again 10 years later after that, you realize there's a second story behind that main story that you didn't notice before. And that could be the esoteric, occult type of things with symbolism and things like that. And then 10 years later, you watch it again. There's even a story behind the symbolic one. And isn't that just amazing? So it's the same thing that I'm going to do with cosmology. Now, there's a lot of different sites that talk about Chinese ancient Chinese cosmology. And the first thing that I noticed is there's a term called Gai Jian. I don't even know if I'm saying that. There's actually 3 different cosmology versions that the ancient Chinese had. And it was this. This is by www.eduhk.hk. And a portion of this is saying, okay, the early, Chinese drew up their pictures, and let me go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. I sometimes forget that it's harder to see, especially on smaller screens. The early Chinese drew up their pictures of the universe with a focus of the relations between heaven and earth. 3 cosmological models, see figure 1, which is here, were advocated by different schools and held for a long time. Oh, these are figure 1, sorry. It was these 3. These models were once highly advanced in human history, but as a whole, because of the lack of systematic theories, failed to move forward and eventually were replaced in the 17th century by the Western theories. So, 17th century, about 1600, and we'll say these came up around whenever ancient China originated, so at least 1,000, probably 2,000 plus years. Now there are 3 models of the Gaishan, the hemispherical dome. Basically, it's more of a spherical heaven with a flat 4-squared plane. The Hanqian model, the celestial sphere. Again, you've got a sphere of the heavens, but still a flat Earth, but it's a circular Earth. And then there's the Xuanye theory, which is just infinity. It doesn't show any sphere at all. It just has placements of the sun, moon, stars, the vapor, the clouds, which we would call the atmosphere, and an infinite flat plane. Pretty interesting, huh? Now, here, all things Chinese at www.viewofchina.com. Their snippet is traditional Chinese cosmological system is mainly based on the positions, relationships, and movements of the sun, the moon, the 5 major planets in the solar system, and the 28 constellations in the sky. It was established more than 2,200 years ago during the Warring States period, which is 330 BC to 221 BC. Sorry, let me go ahead and zoom it in. Serving the purpose of observing and monitoring the impact of climate change on agriculture and reflecting and forecasting the celestial influence on politics and warfare. Wow. Okay, so you got the interesting number of 7 constellations in the north, Black Turtle, 7 constellations in the east, Green Dragon. That's interesting that the east is on that side. 7 constellations in the west, White Tiger. 7 constellations in the south, Red Bird, and you've got the Big Dipper in the middle. In Chinese cosmology, 5 stars are the names for Venus, the metal star, Jupiter, the wood star, Mercury, the water star, Mars, the fire star, and Saturn, the earth star, representing the 5 agents: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth on the time dimension. The earliest record that documents that the relationship between the 5 planets and the 5 agents is the 5-star oracle, which was unearthed from Mawangdu Lady's Tomb, dating back to 170 BC in the Warring States period. The first golden age of ancient Chinese cosmological development. Okay, so about 1700 years at least. before they switched to the Western cosmology. The 5-star oracle consists of 9 chapters. The first 5 chapters describe the characters of the 5 major planets in the solar system, and the last 3 discuss the orbits of Jupiter, Venus, and Mars, their revolving direction and speed, and the influences of their movements on human activities, especially in military, political, social, and agricultural arenas. The book also mentioned the 24 solar terms that represent 24 seasonal turning points in the year, which is still part of the Chinese calendar today. Interesting stuff. I may have to dig a little bit deeper. And interestingly, they've got their time to be 365 days plus 5 hours 45 minutes. And that's the solar calendar, and this is back in around, what did they say, 170 BC? Is that 170 BC? At least. And they figured that out, so okay. That seems to be consistent, whether through Mayan or Egyptian. Chinese got the 365 days. Although when you usually think about Chinese calendars, you think about the lunar calendars, which is interesting. Here's another one. Chinese cosmos basic concepts. Maybe that's a good one to look at. To understand Chinese theology, literally discourse about gods, we need to explore theories about human existence, and before that we need to review some of the basic concepts of Chinese cosmology. What is the Chinese conception of the cosmos? Any simple answer to that question, of course, merely confirms the biases assumed but not articulated by the question, that there is only one such authentically Chinese view, and that the cosmos as such, present unproblematically to all people, was a coherent topic of discussion in traditional China. Nevertheless, yada yada yada. Let's see. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. Basic stuff. Qi. Basic stuff out of which all things are made of is called Qi. Everything that ever existed at all times is made of Qi, including inanimate matter, humans and animals, the sky, ideas, emotions, demons and ghosts, the undifferentiated state of wholeness in the world when it is teeming with different beings. An axiomatic concept with a wide range of meaning, the word Qi has over the years been translated in numerous ways. Different translators render it into English in 3 different ways. 1, psychophysical stuff, because it involves phenomena one would consider both psychological, connected to human thoughts, and and feelings, and physical. Pneuma. I never heard of that. Drawing on one early etymology of the word as vapor, steam, or breath. And 3, vital energy, accentuating the potential for life inherent to the more ethereal forms of Qi. These meanings of Qi hold for most schools of thought in early Chinese religion. It is only with the renaissance of Confucian traditions undertaken by Zhu Ji, 1130 to 1200, I would say that would be in BC, Song Dynasty scholar. And others that Qi is not interpreted not as a single thing, part matter and part energy, pervading everything, but as 2 basic metaphysical building blocks. According to Zhu Ji, all things partake of both Qi and Li, homophonous to but different from the Li, meaning ritual propriety. The latter understanding of the reason a thing is what it is and its underlying principle or reason. So yin yang, and kind of probably goes back and forth between spiritual and whatnot. I'm gonna skip that. Let's go to the main area that most people would look at, which is the Chinese creation myths. What's interesting here, what I like, is you've got this. I wonder if Marty Leeds might like this part. in here it says a Han era, which is I think around 220 BC. Does it say? Let's see. I think 206 to 220 AD. 206 BC to 220 AD. A Han era mural depicting Nuwa with a compass and Fuji with a square. Square and compass were the Chinese, ancient Chinese Freemasons. Interesting. And interestingly enough, these, I haven't read into it, but it looks like serpents' tails entwined. Okay, well, let's do a quick reading. In contrast to the above Chinese cosmogenic myths about the world and humans originating spontaneously without a creator, two later origin myths for human involve divinities. The female Nuwa fashioned people from lows and mud, Lawas, or from procreating with her brother slash husband Fuji. And later versions of this about the male Pangu say that people derived from mites on his corpse. Ew. Nuwa in Chinese mythology, the goddess Nuwa repaired the fallen pillars holding up the sky, creating human beings either before or after. And aside from the Abrahamic religions, creation mostly appears to be in the form of a female essence, which makes more sense, right? Because we're not born from males. We were given birth by females. The ancient Chinese believed in a square earth and a round dome-like sky supported by 8 giant pillars. The European ideas of an axis mundi, whatever. The heavenly questions of the Song of Chu from around 4th century BC is the first surviving text that refers to Nuwa. By what law was Nuwa raised up to become a high lord? By what means did she fashion the different creatures? Two Huainanzi chapters record Nuwa mythology 2 centuries later. Going back to more ancient times, the 4 of 8 pillars were broken. The 9 provinces were in tatters. Heaven did not completely cover the earth. Interesting. Okay. Earth did not hold up heaven all the way around its circumference. Fires blazed out of control and could not be extinguished. Water flooded in great expanses and would not recede. Another flood story. Ferocious animals ate blameless people. Predatory birds snatched the elderly and the weak. Thereupon Nuwa smelted together 5 colored stones in order to patch up the azure sky, cut off the legs of the great turtle to set them up as the 4 pillars, killed the black dragon to provide relief for G province, and piled up reeds and cinders to stop the surging waters. The azure sky was patched. The 4 pillars were set up. The surging waters were drained. The province of G was tranquil. Crafty vermin died off. Blameless people preserved their lives, bearing the square 9 provinces. The square provinces on her back, embracing heaven. Fuxi and Nuwa established the harmony of spring and the yin of summer, the slaughtering of autumn and the restraint of winter. The yellow emperor produced yin and yang. Shang Pian produced ears and eyes. Shang Lin produced shoulders and arms. Nuwa used these to carry out the 70 transformations. And sorry, I've got some allergies coming on, so I may sneeze every once in a while. So the Feng Shu Tong Yi, written by Yang Shao around AD 195, describes Han era beliefs about the primeval goddess. People say that when heaven and earth opened and unfolded, humankind did not yet exist. Nukua needed yellow earth and fashioned human beings. Though she worked feverishly, she did not have enough strength to finish her task. So she drew her cord in a furrow and threw the mud and lifted it out to make human beings. That's why rich aristocrats are the human beings made from yellow earth, while ordinary poor commoners are the human beings made from the cord's furrow. Ooh, that kind of sucks. And what I guess you can associate with that the bloodlines. And let's go a little bit further. 9th century Duiji, a treatise on extraordinary things by Li Rong, records a later tradition that Nuwa and her brother Fuxi were the first humans. Oh, okay, so that's like Adam and Eve story. In this version, the goddess had been demoted from a primal creatrix to a mortal subservient to God in heaven, and a lowly female subservient to the male in the traditional manner of marital relations. Interesting how it keeps becoming very similar to the Abrahamic religion, even though it was quite different before. It's very, very Gnostic before, and it becomes very Abrahamic. Long ago, when the world first began, there were two people, Nakua and her brother, and her older brother. They lived on Mount Kunlun, and there were not yet any ordinary people in the world. They talked about becoming husband and wife, but they felt ashamed. So the brother at once went with his sister up Mount Kunlun and made this prayer: "O heaven, if thou wouldst send us forth as man and wife, then make all the misty vapor gather. If not, then make all the misty vapor disperse." At this, the misty vapor immediately gathered. When the sister became intimate with her brother, they plaited some grass to make a fan to screen their faces. So very similar to leaves in their covering the Adam and Eve's private regions after they take the apple, which is an interesting story. Is where did that tree with the apple and the serpent come from? Because that wasn't in the Bible. Even today, when a man takes a wife, they hold a fan, which is a symbol of what happened long ago. Maybe it was in the Bible. I heard stories that wasn't. Anyways, interesting. And then we'll end with the Pengu. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. It sounds like penguin, or yeah. One of the most popular creation myths in Chinese mythology describes the firstborn semi-divine human Pengu, which is quote antiquity, separating the world egg-like Hundun, primordial chaos, into heaven and earth. However, none of the ancient Chinese classics mentions the Pengu myth. Oh, okay, so it's probably, I'll assume that it's going to be somewhat similar to Abrahamic depictions, which was first recorded in 3rd century Sanwu Li Ji. Historical records of the three sovereign divinities and the five gods attributed to the Greek Three Kingdom period. Taoist author Zhu Zhang. Thus, in classical Chinese mythology, Nuwa predates Pengu by 6 centuries. Heaven and earth were in chaos like a chicken's egg, and Pengu was born in the middle of it. In 18,000 years, heaven and the earth opened and unfolded. The limpet that was yang became the heavens, and the turbid that was yin became the earth. Pengu lived within them, and one day he went through 9 transformations. 9 seems a very big number in ancient Chinese cosmology. Becoming more divine than heaven and wiser than the earth. Each day the heavens rose 10 feet higher, each day the earth grew 10 feet thicker, and each day Pengu grew 10 feet taller. And so it was that in 18,000 years, the heavens reached the fullest height, earth reached its lowest depth, and Pengu became fully grown. Afterwards, there's the three sovereign divinities. Oh, only like the God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, although they say the Holy Ghost if you're Orthodox Catholic. Good morning, Flat Earth, and good evening, Memento Mori. Numbers began with 1, were established with 3, perfected by 5, multiplied with 7, and fixed with 9. Interesting, those are all odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That's why heaven is 90,000 leagues from earth. 90,000 leagues from earth. Right. So, that's something interesting to visit. And I wanted to look into more of like Native American cosmology. and see where the similarities lie within the Native American cosmology. And here's a cool visual. Oh, I already had that up. This is an artist's interpretation of Southeastern Native cosmology. So in the tripartite division of the world, the axiom Mundi is depicted as a tree, like Yggdrasil is very similar to the North mythology, connecting the fire symbol of this world, the sun symbol of the upper world, right here, which is the cross, and the swastika symbol of the lower world, which is this right here. This is a drawing by Jack Johnson, reproduced with permission of F. Kent Riley. Pretty interesting. Now, what I came across, and of course, if you watch this from the beginning with the quote of the day, you've got Black Elk. And I was interested in knowing if there's a cosmology within Black Elk, and there is. It's pretty cool. I like it. This site is www.amacad.org. It's fall 2001 by Jack D. Forbes. Indigenous American Spirituality and Ecos. So the cosmic visions of indigenous peoples are significantly diverse, which is why I picked Oglala Sioux and not Native Americans in general. Each nation and community has its own unique traditions. Still, several characteristics stand out. First, it is common to envision the creative process of the universe as a form of thought or mental process. And what I like about when I'm listening to Black Elk, now the quote of the day that I used was, wow, can I find it? Here it is. Give me a second. And this is why it struck a chord with me, and where I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something about this one. The quote of the day: Crazy Horse dreamed and went into the world where there is nothing but the spirits of all things. That is the real world behind this one, and everything we see here is something like a shadow from that one. And so two things that stand out for me here. One is my experience with ayahuasca, very similar to going to a different world, where it's just a different state of consciousness. Only way I can describe it. And also the second part here, that is real world behind this one, and everything we see here is something like a shadow from that one. Very similar to Plato's allegory of the cave. If you don't know what Plato's allegory of the cave is, definitely read up or just watch a video on Plato's allegory of the cave. Now, isn't that something? Unless maybe Black Elk was well versed in reading Plato's works. Who knows? All right. Oh, and another quote that I liked. And this is very similar to old age, new age idea. At the center of the universe dwells the Great Spirit. And that center is really everywhere. It is within each of us. So we're all carrying a piece of the essence, the spark of the, whatever you want to call it, the Most High, Divine, Great Spirit. And this is the Oglala Sioux. Pretty cool, huh? Now, so I'm going to continue on here. Second, it is common to have a source of creation that is plural, either because several entities participate in creation or because the process as it unfolds, includes many sacred actors stemming from a first principle, which is father, mother, or grandfather, grandmother. Third, the agents of creation are seldom pictured as human, but are depicted instead as wakan, holy, or animal-like, coyote, raven, great white hare, etc. So, or as forces of nature, such as wind or breath. And so that's very allegorical. The Lakota medicine man, Lame Deer, says that the Great Spirit is not like a human being. He is a power. That power could be in a cup of coffee. The Great Spirit is no old man with a beard. The concept perhaps resembles the Elohim of the Jewish Genesis, a plural form of Eloi, usually mistranslated as God, as though it were singular. Perhaps the most important aspect of indigenous cosmic visions is the concept of creation. And here's the quote that I backtracking. The quote that I listen to all the time. Hi, Tiger Doug. You've got the quote from the Abrahamic scriptures, "Thou shalt have no God before me." Something similar to that. So, let's disregard the jealousy of this God that states that. But, that means there's other gods. That God is saying that there's other gods, because why would a god care if you worship other gods if there were no other gods? Therefore, there are other gods out there, even within the Abrahamic religions. Otherwise, why would God say that? And then another way to interpret that is, no gods before me. So maybe there was a god before that God. Get it? No gods before me. Therefore, there was a God before the God in the Abrahamic religions. And that God doesn't want you worshiping the God before him. So, two ways to interpret that. Either way, there is at least another God in the Abrahamic religions. Okay. Perhaps I'm going to continue back on here. I'm sorry. Perhaps the most important aspect of indigenous cosmic visions is the conception of creation as a living process, resulting in a living universe in which a kinship exists between all things. Thus, the creators are our family, our grandparents or parents, and all of their creations are children who of necessity are also our relations. The ancient Shiwi, Zuni prayer song states that our Mother Earth may wrap herself in a fourfold robe of white meal, snow, when our Earth Mother is replete with living waters, another Earth as a female essence again. That seems to be a common trait within all cosmology stories within the mythological civilizations with the mythological creation stories. So when our Earth Mother is replete with living waters, when spring comes, the source of our flesh, all the different kinds of corn, we shall lay to rest in the ground with the Earth Mother's the living waters. They will be made into new beings, coming out, standing into the daylight of their Son Father to all sides. They will stretch out their hands. Thus, the Mother Earth is a living being, which is as are the waters and the sun. Mother Earth is a living being, very similar to the Gnostic traditions of a Mother Earth, and similar to Mother Ayahuasca again, which you can definitely experience the Mother Earth as a living being, and the pain that she feels, the burden, more appropriately. Juan Matus told Carlos Castaneda that Gennaro, a Mazteca, was just now embracing this enormous earth, but the earth knows that Gennaro loves it and it bestows on him its care. This earth, this world, for a warrior there can be no greater love This lovely being which is alive to its last recesses and understands every feeling, or as Lame Deer puts it, we must try to use the pipe for mankind, which is on the road to self-destruction. This can be only done if all of us, Indians and non-Indians alike, can again see ourselves as part of the earth, not as an enemy from the outside who tries to impose its will on it. Very similar to before, as I was talking about. And I'll segue into that right after I finish this last one, because we also know that being a living part of the earth, we cannot harm any part of her without hurting ourselves. Yeah. What I wanted to state was earlier on topics where I mentioned that there's this duality. There's this order out of chaos. The thing is, people see nature as being chaos, which is wrong, because nature itself is very ordered. There's no chaos within nature. Everything has a structure within nature. It's humans that cause the chaos, because we want to go and not be a part of it. We want to impose our will on nature and change nature to see it the way we want it to be as humans. And it's very much like the controllers of the masses. Their belief system is that they can become gods without being a part of the divine essence, the spark, the connective essence. They are going to try to become their own god outside of that. It's very similar. And then you've got the ancient and reoccurring, it's being revitalized, the belief system that we within our God essence, and you can maybe even include the Abrahamic or the Jesus Christ actually story, or the Gnostic story, that we were created by divine being or divine essence or multiplicities of it. Maybe we weren't given a spark, the divine essence, during our creation, but some part afterwards we might have been. Either way, we were and have this essence now. If we didn't before, maybe we always did, we don't know. But we're part of God, and therefore we can become God, just like a child can become an adult. We want our children to become adults, so they no longer stay children. They can have their own families. It's the same thing of those that created humans, that we can eventually learn to become like God, the ones who created us, because that's what they want. They don't want us to be children. They don't want us to be adult humans. They want us to grow and be more than just what we think we can be, what our limitations are, and which the controllers of the masses appear to want us to stay. They want us to stay as children or as adult humans. They don't want us to become more than that. They themselves want to become more than that. They want to become gods themselves, but without the essence that they have within them. Otherwise, humans, when most non-traditional religious belief systems, it's that pathway to be as of your ancestors, not your ancestor humans, but your ancestor of creators of humans. So I think that's an interesting commonality here. So, European writers long ago referred to indigenous Americans' ways as animism, a term that means lifeism. And it is true that most or perhaps all Native Americans see the entire universe as being alive, that is, as having movement and an ability to act. But more than that, indigenous Americans tend to see this living world as a fantastic and beautiful creation, engendering extremely powerful feelings of gratitude and indebtedness, and obliging us to behave as if we are related to one another. An overriding characteristic of Native North American religion is that of gratitude, a feeling of overwhelming love and thankfulness for the gifts of the Creator and the Earth universe. As a Cahuilla elder, Ruby Modesto has stated, "Thank you, Mother Earth, for holding me on your breast. You always love me no matter how old I get." Whereas Joshua Wetsit, an Assiniboine elder, born in 1886, put it, "But our Indian religion is all one religion, the Great Spirit. We're thankful that we're on this Mother Earth. That's the first thing when we wake up in the morning, is to be thankful to the Great Spirit for the Mother Earth, how we live, what it produces, what keeps everything alive." True. People don't realize without Mother Earth, without Mother Nature, without Mother's nurture, we would not live. We would not be alive. We would not have anything, any substance where we would eat and grow. People don't realize that enough. We take her for granted most times. I've made that mistake too. I think I need to be more thankful, and I am not thankful enough, I've realized. But I think part of that is realizing how much we're not thankful. Even our own mothers, not just Mother Earth, but with our own mothers, the amount of care and love and nurture that she gave for us to be where we are now. So I think, so that's something to think about. Maybe go out and tell your mother how much you love her. I'm sure she appreciates that. Many years ago, the Great Spirit gave the Shawnee Sauk, fox, and other people's maize or corn. This gift arrived when a beautiful woman appeared from the sky. She was fed by 2 hunters, and in return she gave them after 1 year, maize, beans, and tobacco. We thank the Great Spirit for all the benefits he has conferred upon us. For myself, I never take a drink of water from a spring without being mindful of his goodness. Although it is certainly true that Native Americans ask for help from spiritual beings, it is my personal observation that giving thanks, or in some cases, giving payment for gifts received, is a salient characteristic of most public ceremonies. Perhaps this is related to the overwhelmingly positive attitude Native Americans have had toward the Creator and the world of nature, or what I call the Wemitali, the all there in the Delaware Lenape language. Slow Buffalo, a teacher, is remembered to have said about 1,000 years ago, "Remember the ones you are going to depend upon. Remember the ones you are going to depend upon. Up in the heavens, the mysterious one, that is your grandfather. And between the earth and the heavens, that is your father. This earth is your grandmother. The dirt is your grandmother. Whatever grows in the earth is your mother. It is just like a sucking baby on a mother. Always remember, your grandmother is underneath your feet always. You are always on her, and your father is above." Winona LaDuke, a contemporary leader from White Earth Anishinaabe land, tells us that Native American teachings describe the relations of all around, animals, fish, trees, and rocks, as their brothers, sisters, uncles, and grandpas. These relations are honored in ceremony, song, story, and life that keep relations close. To buffalo, sturgeon, salmon, turtles, bears, wolves, and panthers, these are our older relatives, the ones who came before and taught us how to live. And very Taoist-like right there, just observing the nature around us and learning from the nature that we experience. For example, we see bears catching fish. Fish jumping up. Probably go, hey, how can we do that? We'll create nets. See, birds flying. It's like, hey, can we fly? Probably. Hi, Kathy B. And thus we learn from the animals in nature. It's not that we think of it before and we observe animals saying, hey, animals do it too. No, we learned it from the animals, silly. We didn't come up with it on our own. In 1931, Standing Bear, Lakota said when reciting an ancient prayer, to Mother Earth it is said, you are the only mother that has shown mercy to your children. Behold me, the four quarters of the earth, relative I am. All over the earth, faces of all living things are alike. Mother Earth has turned these faces out of the earth with tenderness. O Great Spirit, behold them, all these faces with children in their hands. Again, in 1931, Black Elk, a well-known Lakota medicine man, told us that the four-leggeds and the wings of the air and the Mother Earth were supposed to be relative-like. The first thing an Indian learns is to love each other, and that should be relative-like to the four-leggeds. And thus we see that this very strong kinship relation to the Wimitali, the all-wearer. The Great Spirit made the flowers, the streams, the pines, the cedars, take care of them. He takes care of me. He takes care of me, waters me, feeds me, makes me live with plants and animals as one of them. All of nature is in us, all of us is in nature. At the center of all the creation is the great mystery, as Black Elk said. When we use the water in the sweat lodge, we should think of Wakantanka, who is always flowing, giving his power and life to everything. The round fireplace at the center of the sweat lodge is the center of the universe, in which dwells Wakantanka with his power, which is the fire. All these things are Wakan, holy and mystery, and must be understood deeply if we really wish to purify our souls. For the power of a thing or an act is in the meaning and the understanding. And Luther Standing Bear, writing in the 1930s, noted, the old people came literally to love the soil, and they sat and reclined on the ground with a feeling of being close to a mothering power. It was good for the skin to touch the earth, and old people liked to remove their moccasins and walk with bare feet on the sacred earth. The soil was soothing, strengthening, cleansing, and healing. And that's what I need to do more, walk barefoot on the soil. Wherever the Lakota went, he was with Mother Earth. No matter where he roamed by day or slept by night, he was safe with her. Native people, according to Standing Bear, were often baffled by the European tendency to refer to nature as crude, primitive, wild, rude, untamed, and savage. Yeah, that sentiment is alive today. For the Lakota, mountains, lakes, rivers, springs, valleys, and woods were all finished beauty. Of course, the indigenous tendency to view the earth and other non-organic entities as being part of bios, life living, is seen by many post-1500 Europeans as simply romantic or nonsensical. When native students enroll in many biology or chemistry classes today, they are often confronted by professors who are absolutely certain that rocks are not alive. But in reality, these professors are themselves products of an idea system of materialism and mechanism that is both relatively modern and indefensible. Haha! Good stuff. I like this. I have challenged this materialist perspective in a poem. Kinship is the basic principle of philosophy, which I partially reproduce here as indicative of some common indigenous perspectives. For hundreds of years, certainly for thousands, our native elders have taught us all my relations. It means all living things in the entire universe. All our relations, they have said time and time again. Do you doubt still? A rock alive, you say? It is hard. It doesn't move of its own accord. It has no eyes. It doesn't think. But rocks do move, but when in a fire it will get hot, won't it? That means, won't you agree that its insides are moving ever more rapidly? So don't kid me, my friend. Rocks change. Rocks move. Rocks flow. Rocks combine. Rocks are powerful friends. I have many, big and small. Their processes at our temperatures are very slow, but very deep. I understand because, you see, I am part rock. I eat rocks. Rocks are part of me. I couldn't exist without the rock in me. We are all related. No, it's alive, I tell you, just like the old ones say. They've been here, you know. They've crossed the boundaries, not with computers, but with their own very beings. Sorry, with their very own beings. I wonder if I'm dyslexic. It's only when I read aloud. About 1,000 years ago, a white buffalo calf woman came to the ancestors of the Lakota, giving them a sacred pipe and a round rock. The rock, Black Elk said, is the earth, your grandmother and mother, and it is where you will live and increase. All of this is sacred, and so do not forget. Every dawn as it comes is a holy event, and every day is holy, for the light comes from your father Wakantanka. And also you must always remember that the two-leggeds and all the other peoples who stand upon this earth are sacred and should be treated as such. Man, so much good stuff. And Juan Matus is Carlos Castaneda's journey to Ixtlan captures very well the attitude of many native people. You don't eat 5 quail, you eat 1. You don't damage the plants just to make a barbecue. You don't use and squeeze people until they have shriveled to nothing, especially the people you love. This kind of attitude is found over and over again in the traditions of native people. From the basketry and food gathering techniques of native Californians to the characters in the stories Anna Lee Walters and her novel Ghost Singer, stories in The Sun is Not Merciful, or in Talking Indian. Now, here we go. Ecos, or maybe Oikos. I'm saying it wrong. I know I am. Is the house we live in, our place of habitation. But where do we live and who are we? Certainly we can define ecos in a narrow sense as our immediate vicinity, or we can broaden it to include the sun, which is of course the driving power of energy source in everything that we do. The moon and the entire known universe, including the great creative power, or Kitanitowit in Lenape. Our ecos, from the indigenous point of view, extends out to the very boundaries of the great totality of existence, the Wemi Tali. This is a pretty good one. Many indigenous thinkers have considered humans part of the Wemi Tali, not separate from it, as I have written. For us, truly, there are no surroundings. I can lose my hands and still live. I can lose my legs and still live. I can lose my eyes and still live. But if I lose the air, I die. If I lose the sun, I die. If I lose the earth, I die. If I lose the water, I die. If I lose the plants and animals, I die. All of these things are more a part of me, more essential to my every breath than is my so-called body. What is my real body? Wow, that is good. We are not autonomous, self-sufficient beings, as European mythology teaches. We are rooted just like the trees, but our roots come out of our nose and mouth, like an umbilical cord, forever connected with the rest of the world. Nothing that we do we do by ourselves. We do not see by ourselves. We do not hear by ourselves. We do not think, dream, invent, or create by ourselves. We do not die by ourselves. I am a point of awareness, a circle of consciousness in the midst of a series of circles. One circle is that which we call the body. It is the universe itself, full of millions of little living creatures living their own separate but dependent lives. But all of these circles are not really separate. They are all mutually dependent upon each other. We, in fact, have no single edge or boundary, but are rather part of a continuum that extends outward from our center of consciousness, both in perception, epistemological, existential, and in biophysical sense. Our brain centers must have oxygen, water, blood with all of its elements, minerals, etc. in order to exist, but also, of course, must connect to the cosmos as a whole. Thus, our own personal bodies form part of the universe directly, while these same bodies are miniature universes in which, as noted, millions of living creatures subsist, operate, fight, reproduce, and die. And this is some good stuff. I think we'll end it there. It's almost been an hour. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, no one's joined to have a discussion. No one's saying much in the comment section, but that's okay. I think hopefully this may open your eyes to just revisiting some of the ancient mythology, the creation stories and just the thought processes that were there, and not just the post-European version of things. And I like it. I mean, it ties into the commonality of a lot of mythological creation stories. One commonality is the Mother Earth, the divine feminine essence, the female essence, and is the essence that we are all born from. And it's the one that nurtures us. For without it, we would not be alive. The very air that we breathe, the very waters that we drink, we would not live. And we only grow, and all things grow with the sun. And the plants and the animals must eat of the earth, from the earth. Just think about it. I mean, we could live without our body parts, but take any of those away, which I just mentioned, we die. It is true. Sophia, yes. Yes, it is too much to discuss in chat. Hi, good morning, Samantha Peters. Where's this book from? So it's the it's not a, well, it's called Daedalus. Journal of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Is Fall 2001 by Jack D. Forbes. Indigenous American Spirituality and Ecos. It's very good. I want to read the rest of it. I just found it today, mostly because I found Black Elk and some of the stuff that he says, and it just when you're not afraid is so great, because you're able to explore. And the thing is, if you're exploring, you're always excited about what you discover, and I'm always excited about what I discover. And some of the things that I discover is stuff that I've discovered in the past, and it's like, hey, how are these connecting to each other? I mean, how it's just amazing. Tiger Doug, what are your thoughts on Norse cosmology, Ebon? Chat. I like the Norse mythology. I think it's interesting. It ties in a lot of things, which is odd and interesting in itself, but with little changes here and there. But the Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, and the cosmology of the Norse, and we're gonna get to the Norse mythology. That's for sure. That's another good one. And, the controllers of the masses, the control systems that are set, and the religious dogma that's out there always have accounted for anything that's outside of their religious system as pagan and evil and of the devil and etc. I don't see it that way. But of course, I don't see a lot of things in the way that the system has set up for us. And that's why I am here, always doing this and trying to learn more as much as I can. And sometimes logic and thinking won't get me to understanding things. Sometimes it the experience of something that is just as important. Wainaina Leduc is the daughter of Sun Bear Vincent Leduc, the Bear tribe. Is that something I should look up? I guess I'll take a look. Bear tribe. Or what is edited out like the Book of Enoch, yes. Yeah. It's so all the that's the interesting thing about all these religious texts and things that we're just discovering more that we all thought might have been destroyed, is that at least they're no longer, at least actively, killing pagans and and those who just aren't following their religious dogma. At least that's a start. Who knows if it might get to that again. being a heretic. I feel like I'll be the first one to be gone. And it's not like I don't read and listen to and think about the Abrahamic religions either. I listen to it. I probably know more about that than any of the stuff that I'm looking into now. But that there are many religious things out there, but they're called mythologies rather than religion. And then if there's just a small number of people of a religion or something relatively new, it's called a cult. When does the cult become a religion? I mean, I remember when people used to regard Mormonism as being a cult, but now it's just one of the main religions out there. And isn't that an interesting thing? Tiger Doug, I'm starting to think that the Norse cosmology lines up with the biblical description of the worlds. Yeah, I would keep looking into things like that, Tiger Doug. I same way I do is I try to find the commonality of all these things that shouldn't have commonality. When you think about the commonality between, I'm a little bit blurry, sorry. The commonality between the Mayan civilization, which is from, 3000 BC, 4000 BC, and the Egyptian civilization, which is about the same era, but they're worlds apart. They're just divided by oceans, yet they have commonality. Isn't that just an odd thing? People will say, it's just coincidence. Some people, everything is a coincidence. Some people, they think nothing is a coincidence, etc. But just to have a commonality between, again, maybe Norse mythology and the Abrahamic mythology. Sorry, I'm going to just conclude them all as mythologies. And some of the Gnostic things, or in similar things like that, to maybe even Native Americans, and Native Americans to very similar things to maybe even ancient China and the Taoist and the Buddhist or Vedic similarities. It's an amazing thing, and that's something that people overlook way too much, I think. It's like, hey, did you know that these two civilizations or peoples and tribes and things like that, they all share a similarity, and people regard that as just it's just coincidence. I mean, people just tend to think about the same things. We're all human, but that's not always the case. I mean, talk to someone in Malaysia, you're gonna be wowed by the differences and the thoughts that are so different. Even with the Koreans, South Koreans that I know that live in South Korea, their thinking and my thinking are totally different. But of course, that's not saying much. My thinking and even people that are near me are very, very different. Revelations, Samantha Peters says, Revelations say Christians will be slaughtered in end times. Maybe. The thing is, end times have never came. End times have always been prophesized, I guess, but it's never come true. And the ones who prophesize the end times, always from some dogma, something that will never come. That's just another fear mongering. I will bet anything. Someone come up now with a prediction of when the end times are going to come. Within this lifetime, all right. Well, I'll be dead by then because my lifetime won't be any. But everyone who predicts something with the end times, I'm willing to offer up everything I've got with everything they've got. Maybe they have millions. They're going to make millions because if people listen to their end time prediction, they've got a lot of views already. They probably wrote a book and they've probably made a lot of money out of it. And people have invested in saying, hey, end of the world, let me give you all my stuff. Maybe I could buy my way into heaven or whatever. It's like, I will bet everything that you made from it that it won't end. End times have never came before now, and it won't come. Because the end times are the end. We won't know. And just to wait for the end times that so far has never came after hundreds of thousands of years is just plain silly. Samantha, so Kathy B. Black Elk was baptized Catholic. Samantha Peters, from my Christian perspective, everyone got off Noah's Ark and dispersed. Memento Mori, if end time comes, we will all get ours no matter what type of slave system you follow, so not only you Christians. Yeah, that is a good point, Memento. In the end times, they say Christians will be slaughtered. If it's the end times, everyone's going to be slaughtered. Everyone's going to die. It's the end. No one lives past the end time. That is true. That is a good point. Tiger Doug, as far as I can tell, the tribulation and battle of Armageddon have already happened. Samantha, do mythologies give any predictions? Look for commonalities. Yeah. Yeah, there are predictions. I think we don't even need to really look into that. I mean, if there are signs, we'll see signs, but we won't know it's the end till the end comes. For all the people who probably say, hey, look, it's the end times, it's here's the signs, there's, what is it, swarms of insects, there's death and disease, there's all this stuff. It's like, okay, they've been there in the past. There's probably been people who rode 4 different horses and a pale horse. It's like, hey, look, end times. So far it hasn't ended yet. And of course, some people do say that it's the end, that we're living in some matrix or something like that. That, you know, the ones who believe in the Mandela effect, that there's that the world maybe did end in 2012, etc. NewYorker.com, News Daily Comment, another vision of Black Elk, Kathy B. Yeah. Yeah, Samantha Peters. Oh, not just Christians, very true. Kathy B. Catholic Church wants to make Nicholas Black Elk a saint. Interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that stuff. But basically, wow. Oh, Samantha Peters, 3 days of darkness. That would be significant. You can consider 3 days of darkness the start of Christmas, right? I mean, if you also look into astrology, or is it astronomy? Maybe both. That the idea of the 3 kings, Orion's belt, and the birth of Jesus as in the Christmas nativity, as being something very similar that's been shared from previous origin stories of virgin birth, resurrection after 3 days, and then the Son, or the Son of God, whichever way you want to say it, rose after 3 days, etc. Very, very interesting stuff, and that all happens during that time period. It's just weird how things end up being that way. Just the commonality of astronomy with the various commonalities of a Jesus, Son of God type of figure. Not to say that there isn't any importance. There's just a lot of similarities and commonalities that shouldn't be ignored. I think part of the problem we have now today is we find information, is like, I don't like this new information. It changes things up too much. And then the people sweep it under the rug. No. We got to stop that. We need to look into it more. We need to think about it more. We need to say, hey, if this is true, how does that change things? We don't do that enough. We don't do that at all anymore. And I think we neglect too many things. I think we want to believe so much. And I was there. I was a big X-Files fan. I want to believe. I had that poster. And I don't want to believe. I want to know. And in that knowing, I have to keep searching. And people are going to hate me. People may even want to kill me just for not my non-beliefs. Now, I'm not saying I'm an atheist. I'm not saying that there is no God. That's just as silly as saying there is a God. What I am saying is we won't know about either until we keep searching. And to believe or not believe in one thing, at the end of the day, it's still belief. We're not going to get to knowing without knowing. And I say this all the time. You know, once you believe that we can't know, again, another belief, we're not going to know because you're not going to search for it. And if you already have a belief that you already know, even though it's a belief of knowing, you're not going to go looking for more information because you think you already know everything. Therefore, you're not going to keep searching. And so for when people say, hey, everything we know, it's here. It's in this book. This book has everything. That's it. And that book does not have everything. And then there's also more books. And do you consider those part of that book or not a part of that book? And then you go, blah, 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 blah. Belief talking. Yeah, or the belief of knowing talking. And who's going to be angered? It's not going to be me. It's probably you. And when you think about it, why are you so angered about that? Why are you so angered about just the idea that that may not be a correct sentiment, that it is a belief that you are saying that you know for sure? And if you do know for sure, then provide your evidence and prove it. How can you prove that what you know is the truth? It should be obvious. It should be shared. It should be simple. But it never seems to be, right? Hopi cosmology. I'll take a look into that. So a lot of these things I think of. A lot of these things I look into. And look, if people want to believe, that's fine. More power to you. But again, trying to force those beliefs onto me, whether through various tactics of alienation or fear mongering, like you're going to hell, or you're going to lose yourself, or you're going to be the devil, or you're going to open yourself to demons. Fear mongering, that doesn't affect me. And then the threat of death. Really, you're that much of a religious, spiritual person that you're going to, again, not just impose fear, but also the threat of death. Oh, that's very hypocritical. So we can usually understand a lot of these things and see it easily when we expose the behavior of certain individuals. It's pretty simple. And I say just look to your leader. Very simple. People who are Catholics, look to your Pope. How does your Pope behave? Look to, if you're say you're an evangelist, look to your leader in the evangelist religion. How are they faring? Do they live by the words that they preach, or do they seem to not? And that's just the way to start. That's the way how I started. Have I ever seen or encountered a demon? Samantha Peters. I don't know. How would I know? I mean, are they the depictions as seen in artwork and illustrations, or can they? I mean, I've seen a shadow of one in my ayahuasca experience. And I laughed at it, saying that it's just a shadow. It can, it has no effect. It's just a shadow. What can it do? It can't do anything. Can shadows do anything to you? Not really. At most, it can give you shade and cool you down from the heat. But no, I've not seen or encountered a demon as much as I'm aware of. Much like an angel. Like I don't know if I've ever seen or encountered an angel. Maybe it has. Who knows? Reptilians? I don't know if I've ever encountered a reptilian. I haven't seen a reptilian. Tiger Dog. The world matrix with all its answers destroys exploration and pumps the ego. It produces bored old men with dementia. I agree. What we see here is just a lot of ego in the world. Fame, fortune, etc. And I think the cult of personality, and that's a problem. We see a template out there with the divisions of elitism, class system, a caste system, whatever you want to call it. It's there. Samantha Peters, the ones I have encountered where it's depicted, you should definitely share that experience. Memento, we don't need demons, we got psychopaths that fills the function more than enough. Yeah. Kathy B, I've noticed as much as what I've spent many years reading, studying has somehow changed. Isn't exactly like I recall it. Yeah. I think the problem is not only is it a problem, it's also beneficial, but it could be a beneficial part of the problem. For example, most of this studying in the past was through written books, textbooks. We can't really do a search, like a keyword search, like we can on the internet on a website or a digital book. Now, having those keywords is great because you can go ahead and cycle through many books. The thing is, you're just jumping to certain keywords based on keywords, right? So we're looking for information based on what we've already preconceived as something that we want to find. So we find it, but we don't sometimes we don't look at the larger context within the entire book. Maybe what we find is a snippet, a paragraph within a book, which is 600 pages. Yet there's 600 pages of context that we're missing within that one paragraph. And also, who knows what has been altered in the digital form from its original source, which if it came from a publication from a book, those books are, unless you're experiencing a Mandela effect from what you've read, that book is static. It's not going to change. If you read a book that's in a digital form or website, it may have made a spelling mistake, an editing mistake. That could also be a possibility. But also the digital forms may not have illustrations that are exactly the same. They may not have taken a photograph or a scan of that image, and that image might have more to it than just the written form. So yeah, there are benefits and problems with digital information, especially digital information that's been archived from the material book form. Not that that's kind of stop from being able to research what the mainstream are researching, what common people are going to find, because the commonalities have to be there. The logical approach to it has to be there. Otherwise, it's easy to say, hey, this isn't adding up. This isn't connecting very easily or very well. There's issues here. Let's address those issues. And we can always go on that standpoint. Just like when I'm researching into globe Earth. I'm not researching flat Earth. I'm researching globe Earth. The official narrative that is the globe Earth model. And I find problems there. That's why I consider myself flat Earth, even though I don't believe in flat Earth or consider the world as being flat in any model. I just observe it as being flat. You can't tell. I can't tell. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe NASA will contact me and go, hey, we want to go to space so you can see it. And I go, sure. And I go up there and I see it and I go, well, this is as far as you get? And it still looks flat to me. Or maybe I go up there, it's like, wow, you guys are real. It is legit. But how am I going to, can I take pictures and videos? And they'll go, no. It's like, why not? We don't want the world to know. It's like, why? Blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. That's not going to happen. Editors hold power. Yeah, they do. So it's weird and it's gonna be tough. And I think maybe that's how things change. Like histories can be changed. For example, before, a lot of people couldn't read, and everything that was taught was handed down through word of mouth, not through the written form. And then the written form came and people stopped telling the stories because they would just read it from one source, which is the book. And they can edit that source of book and make copies of it. And so things will change. People won't realize it. Maybe people did, and they'd say, hey, this is what's different. And, they stopped printing the older copies. The older copies, of course, the pages would deteriorate, the writings would deteriorate, the ink would run out, dry up, and you can't read it anymore, or you can't find it after 30, 60 years, and it's collecting dust, who knows, and you revisit it and it's like, are you going to actually do a comparison of the first print versus the sixth print and of a, say, 2,000 page tome, right? That'd be almost impossible. But at least to credit some publishers, when they make new publications, new prints, they'll tell you the differences between the print and what's changed, what's been added, what's been omitted, etc. They don't do that anymore. Same thing with news, mainstream corporate news. They don't, when they edit something, they don't tell you what they edited. They didn't tell you what's new, what's different. They don't show you a link of the archive of the page of the article. They don't do that anymore. So we're seeing a lot of changes now that we can't account for changes anymore, and that's a problem. Navajo cosmology shows 6 layers above and 6 below. Catholic B. Samantha Peters, my flat earth group meeting is tonight. We discuss all topics. All right. Let me take a look. Yeah, can you give a link? Because I think I did look at your video, but or your YouTube page, but I've never found any videos. So I'm curious about that. Anyways, that is going to be the end of the live stream. I went on for about half an hour longer than I expected to. But anyways, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you another time.